most infamous serial killers in American history. The media called her a monster, but like every monster, her story has a beginning, and it doesn't start with bloodshed. It starts with abandonment, trauma, and survival. This is the story behind the murders, behind the headlines, behind the mugshot. This is Monster, the Aileen Wuornos story. Aileen Carol Wuornos was born on February 29th, 1956, a leap year baby. She never met her father. Leo Dale Pittman was a convicted sex offender and diagnosed schizophrenic. He was in prison when Aileen was born, and later committed suicide by hanging himself in his cell. Her mother, Diane, was just 14 when she married Leo. She left him before Aileen was even a year old. At age 4, Aileen and her older brother, Keith, were abandoned by their mother and taken in by their maternal grandparents, Lori and Britta Wuornos. But this wasn't the loving rescue you might imagine. Lori was an alcoholic with a violent temper. Britta was cold and distant. They weren't parents. They were jailers. As a child, Aileen was described as wild, angry, and unpredictable. But no one asked why. By age 11, she was engaging in sexual acts in exchange for cigarettes and food. By 14, she was pregnant. The child was placed for adoption. She claimed her grandfather raped her. She claimed multiple men in the neighborhood had abused her. No one believed her. No one stepped in. At 15, she was kicked out of the house and began living in the woods behind her high school. That's where Aileen's life on the margins truly began. Throughout her late teens and 20s, Aileen drifted across America. She hitchhiked, slept under bridges, and sold sex to survive. Arrest after arrest followed her. Disorderly conduct, DUI, prostitution, armed robbery. She stole a car. She assaulted a man with a beer bottle. She served time, got out, repeated the cycle. There was no stability, no safety net, just the open road and whatever she could scrounge to make it one more day. But everything changed in 1986. That's when she met Tyria Moore. Tyria was a hotel maid in Daytona Beach. Quiet, reserved, everything Aileen wasn't. They met at a bar and fell for each other fast. For Aileen, Tyria was the first person who didn't use her or throw her away. She was someone to love, someone to protect. But love didn't pay the bills. Aileen kept working the streets. She'd go out, pick up clients, and bring back enough cash to keep them fed and housed. That's how it went for 3 years. Until one night, something snapped. It was November 30th, 1989, and that night, the first body was found. November 30th, 1989, Volusia County, Florida. The body of 51-year-old Richard Mallory is found in a remote area off a wooded highway. Shot multiple times. His car is missing, his body partially buried. Mallory was a well-known electronics store owner with a history. Unbeknownst to many, he had previously served time for attempted sexual assault. When Aileen was arrested later, she would claim he violently raped her. She said she acted in self-defense, that he threatened her life, that she fought back. But the public didn't hear that part of the story right away, and the police didn't yet realize this was just the beginning. May 1990, David Spears, a 43-year-old construction worker, disappears. His body is found naked along a Florida highway, 6 bullet wounds. June 1990, Charles Carskadden, 40, part-time rodeo worker, shot 9 times. July 1990, Troy Burress, 50, a delivery driver, reported missing, found weeks later in a forest. Each murder follows the same disturbing pattern. Male victim, middle-aged or older, picked up while driving, shot multiple times, car stolen. To the public, it seemed random, senseless. But to Aileen, there was a reason. She said each man tried to rape her. choice but to shoot. That every act of violence was a survival instinct, not a killing spree. But not everyone believed that. Through all of this, Tyria Moore remained by her side. She didn't go on the jobs. She didn't pull the trigger. But she knew something wasn't right. Aileen would come home with stolen belongings, cars that weren't hers, wallets with IDs of men who had disappeared. They changed motels frequently, moved from town to town. Tyria said nothing. Was it fear? Was it loyalty? Or was it denial? In late November 1990, Aileen killed her final victim, Walter Antonio, a 62-year-old trucker and reserve police officer. His body was found nearly naked, shot 4 times in the back and head. His vehicle was later found in a different county. By now, police had begun connecting the dots. Multiple murders, similar methods, highway locations, stolen vehicles. They released composite sketches of 2 women seen driving the victims' cars. The pressure was mounting, and Aileen was growing reckless. In early January 1991, Aileen and Tyria were staying at a cheap motel in Daytona Beach. Police had tracked them down using pawnshop records. Aileen had sold items stolen from her victims, jewelry, tools, even a camera. And she used her real name and thumbprint on the forms. It was only a matter of time. On January 9th, 1991, police arrested Aileen at a biker bar called The Last Resort. She didn't resist. She knew it was over. But what came next would test every ounce of her loyalty and love. Police found Tyria, who had fled back to Pennsylvania. They offered her a deal: full immunity if she got Aileen to confess. They brought Tyria to a motel room, gave her a phone, and told her to call Aileen. Aileen answered. Over 3 days, Tyria begged her over the phone, said she was scared, said the police were going to arrest her too. Aileen broke. In her final phone call, she said, "I did it. I did all the killings, okay? Don't let them hurt you. I did it alone." It was the confession police needed, and the end of their twisted love story. After 3 days of phone calls, it was done. Aileen Wuornos confessed to killing 7 men. She told investigators the same thing she told Tyria, that she acted alone, that every killing was in self-defense, that she had no choice. But the police saw a different picture. 7 dead men, multiple gunshots, stolen property, no physical evidence of rape, no defensive wounds. To them, Aileen wasn't a desperate woman protecting herself. She was a serial killer hunting vulnerable men on lonely highways. And now, she was going to trial. Her first trial began in January 1992. She was charged with the murder of Richard Mallory, the electronics store owner and her first known victim. The prosecution came out swinging. They brought in ballistics evidence. They matched bullets from Mallory's body to a .22 caliber revolver found in Aileen's possession. Then they did something rare, something controversial. They invoked what's called Florida's Williams Rule. It allowed them to introduce evidence of the other 6 murders, even though she hadn't been formally tried for those yet. They painted a picture of a violent, manipulative woman who lured men to their deaths for profit. And then, Tyria Moore took the stand. She testified against Aileen, told the court that Aileen had admitted to the killings, that she brought home stolen items, that she kept her in the dark, but not completely. Aileen watched from the defense table, silent, expressionless. The woman she loved had sold her out. Throughout the trial, Aileen's behavior became increasingly erratic. She cursed at the judge, lashed out at the media. In one outburst, she screamed, "You're gonna execute a raped woman." Her public defenders tried to plead insanity. They brought in psychologists who diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder, antisocial tendencies, PTSD. But it didn't matter. was found guilty of first-degree murder. And just days later, Aileen Wuornos was sentenced to death. But she didn't stop talking. Chapter 13. The Death Row Years. Over the next 10 years, Aileen gave dozens of interviews to journalists, documentarians, even Nick Broomfield, who would release a chilling documentary called Aileen, Life and Death of a Serial Killer. Her story shifted with each telling. Sometimes she said the killings were self-defense. Other times, she claimed she wanted to die. At one point, she even accused the prison of poisoning her food. She became more paranoid, more withdrawn. She fired her lawyers, refused appeals. She said she was ready to die. Society can't deal with me. I'm trash. Just get rid of me. In 2001, she wrote a letter to the Florida Supreme Court requesting to be executed as soon as possible. The court granted her wish. On October 9th, 2002, Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison. She declined a last meal, instead choosing a cup of coffee. Her final words were bizarre and cryptic. Yes, I would just like to say, I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back. At 9:47 a.m., she was pronounced dead. She was 46 years old. The media had a field day. Some called her a monster, a predator, a remorseless killer who deserved exactly what she got. Others saw her as a tragic figure, a woman born into violence, abused by the system, and discarded by the world. The truth probably lives somewhere in between. Aileen Wuornos was undeniably dangerous, but she was also undeniably damaged. She lived a life no child should endure. She survived in a world